Hi guys, it's me, Chaz HD, and welcome to the first watch-along of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix weekend. And of course, it's for Practice 2, which as you can see on the top left of your screen, gets underway in just under 15 minutes time. Hopefully you guys are all doing well, no matter what time it is in your part of the world. Hopefully you're all having as best a time as possible. And I hope that you can join me in watching along this practice session in Jeddah that's coming up very, very soon. And really, similar to Bahrain, because qualifying in the race takes place at night, this is the only really representative practice session of the weekend. So, yeah, we should find out a decent amount from this session as to what the pecking order is looking like going into qualifying. Of course, it's not going to be absolutely the same once we get to qualifying, but yeah, we'll have a decent idea definitely coming out of this session. And hopefully we get some surprises. Maybe Alpine being super quick. Williams were quite quick in practice 1. We'll get to the results, by the way, of practice 1 in a few moments' time. Maybe see some better pace from Mercedes. Maybe, you know, if Aston Martin could show a bit more to try and match Red Bull, which so far doesn't look as though that's going to happen. You know, maybe that can create a surprise for us. But we'll see in practice 2 once we get to it. I just want to say quickly before we properly get into this stream, if I do sound a bit bunged up with my voice, I do have a cold, quite a cold at the minute. So yeah, do bear with me in this Practice 2 stream. It hopefully should get better as the stream goes along, but I may have to mute my microphone at certain points just to wipe my nose and, yeah, continue on without suffering too badly with what's going on here. But yeah, we'll get into the results of Practice 1 in a moment. The Practice 1 session wasn't very interesting, to be honest. I mean, I didn't really watch Practice 1, but what do you call it? Nothing really happened. I mean, there was a couple close calls with traffic for certain drivers where they came around a corner and there was traffic there and they had to take avoiding action by going off the circuit. I think Lance Stroll was one. I think Carlos Sainz complained about traffic as well. So, yeah, those were really the only highlights, I guess, of Practice 1. The only other interesting thing I would say is that Max Verstappen, the lap time he did in Practice 1 was only, I think, a tenth of a second slower, I think, than pole position at the same track last season. Let me just quickly check what the pole position time was 12 months ago at this circuit. And well, actually, it was quite a bit quicker. Yeah, it was quite a bit quicker, put it that way, than the Practice 1 time done by Verstappen. I saw someone on Twitter say it was like almost as quick as pole position last year, but yeah, clearly not. Pole position was a 1:28.2, and I think for a couple minutes, I'll make sure to get the timer back on screen in a moment. Let's get into the results of Practice 1. So Max Verstappen topped the session on a 1:29.6, which is very quick compared to the Practice 1, the best Practice 1 time of Practice 1 at this track last year, which I think was nearly or pretty much a second slower than what Max did. So yeah, very good gain of lap time from all of these cars, really. Sergio Perez ended up second, with Alonso third, Stroll fourth, Russell fifth, Hamilton sixth, and then Sainz, Gasly, Albon, and Tsunoda completing the top 10. And then the rest of the field, Leclerc, Ocon, De Vries, Piastri, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Sargent, Bottas, Zhou, and Norris. Again, though, Practice 1 isn't that representative, I mean, at any weekend, to be honest, of what the true pace is for the field. And definitely here, because obviously qualifying the race will be taking place at night, not in the day where Practice 1 takes place. Yeah, it's just not representative at all. But if we go back to this, the top 10 in practice one, the pole position time last year at this circuit was a 1:28.2. So it is impressive that Max is only 1.5 seconds away from, the pole position time of last year in first practice, when they're all running quite a bit more fuel than they obviously would in qualifying, and they're not running anywhere near close to full power as well. So yeah, that is quite impressive, the amount of gain of lap time. And in this session, they're going to show definitely more pace, all of the teams, especially Ferrari. If you are a Ferrari fan, don't be concerned with what happened in practice one, because I think, especially with their reliability issues, I think they're trying to keep their power unit turned down as much as they can get away with until they actually need to turn it up to max power. So yeah, I don't think you're going to see stunning lap times from Ferrari today, but I think you'll definitely see a lot more from them tomorrow. But yeah, not much we could take, I think, is the conclusion I would have from practice one. Red Bull, of course, we expect to be very quick. Aston Martin and Mercedes, I expect them to be on similar pace, to be honest. This weekend, Ferrari, I think, will be in qualifying trim as quick as Red Bull, if not quicker. Then, of course, in race trim, it should be Red Bull, who are easily the best. But we'll go back to this, and I'll just get the timer back on screen for you guys. And we have got, about 8 minutes to go until practice 2. The best lap time for Verstappen there, 1:29.6. I would expect the best lap time in this session to be a low 1:29. I'd be surprised if it was, about the same as it was in practice 1. I think they're going to definitely get into the low 29s. Maybe even if someone pulls off a really great lap, Verstappen, Perez, or even Leclerc or Sainz, I reckon maybe even a late 1:28 in this session could be possible. But in qualifying tomorrow, I mean, I'm just trying to think, in Bahrain, the gain of lap time from pole position in 2022 in Bahrain to pole position in 2023, 2 weeks ago, I think was about 3/4 of a second, if I remember correctly. It was about 7 or 8 tenths of a second. So pole position tomorrow should be like a mid 1:27, maybe even a low 1:27, which would still be, I think, slower than the best time in qualifying here from 2021. So the cars are still, not as quick as those cars. But yeah, that would be a decent gain of lap time, especially when you consider that these cars were made, supposedly, half a second slower with a alteration to the floor in the winter break. And actually, I'm just looking, the best lap time from 2021 at this circuit was a 1:27.5. So actually, yeah, I reckon they could probably get on terms with what they were doing there that weekend. Of course, a famous weekend that was, famous qualifying session as well for a dramatic end. Hopefully we get that this weekend as well. I just want to say, though, quickly, before we get into the session, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because, of course, I will be doing a full slate of many things, content-wise, tomorrow. Qualifying watch-along, F2 sprint race watch-along, practice 3 watch-along, and a qualifying preview. And I'll be going live tomorrow at 12 PM UK time, and then I'll be live all the way until 6:30 PM. And then on Sunday, I'm doing an F2 feature race watch-along, and then a race preview and watch-along for obviously the F1 race. And I'll be live that day from 1 PM until nearly 8 PM UK time. So make sure to join me for that. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, you can hit subscribe right there. As well, make sure to hit the notifications bell so you're notified as to when my content is released, goes live, all of that stuff. And for everyone watching right now, make sure to smash that like button. Let's try and get up to like 15 likes by, say, 10 minutes into practice 2, which would be, 15 minutes from now, as we're, about 5 minutes, 4.5 minutes away from the second practice session beginning. Darkness has descended at the Jeddah circuit. There has been some slight track alterations made to the circuit as well. In certain areas, to make it a bit safer, they've made it a bit more open. So that, if a driver does spin or have an accident, or not have an accident, but if they, spin or go off the track, that the wall is not, as close and terrifying as it was before. And I think that is in response to what happened with Mick Schumacher in qualifying last year, where obviously he had a titanic accident and then wasn't able to do the race because I think physically he wasn't in great shape after it, but also the chassis of his Haas was absolutely destroyed. So they've just made things, I think, a little safer if drivers have any moments again. But the F1 intro is currently playing, and they're just going through the details about the circuit. One key detail to remember for this weekend is, in Bahrain, of course, we had the C3, C2, and C1 compound for the Bahrain Grand Prix. For this weekend, it's the C4, C3, and C2. And I think the reason Pirelli here have gone for a step softer on the compounds is because tyre wear, because of the asphalt, and also because of the nature of the circuit, tyre wear is not as big of an issue here. So that's why they've gone softer on the compounds. The difference between the C4 and the C3 is about half a second. And then the difference, I think, from the C3 to the C2 is at least a second elapsed. So, yeah. In the race on Sunday, I would expect that the C3 compound, the medium compound, is going to be the tyre that's used probably the most. And definitely plenty of the drivers on Sunday will, I think, be starting on that medium compound tyre. As a session very soon will be getting underway in the next 90 seconds or so, or just over that. Polish Eddie Chazzy, do you think anyone will greet the wall in FP2, and if so, who? I don't really want to predict those things, to be honest, because, it could result in something bad. But, I mean, from practice 1, I didn't see any cars really struggling at this circuit. F1 looked okay. I mean, in practice 1, you're not really going to be pushing that hard. You're just trying to get a good base, really, for the weekend. That's what practice 1 is about. And, I don't think we truly know yet who is, or what cars are handling better than others, truly, around this circuit yet. And we'll definitely get a better idea, much better idea, in this session, as the cars soon will be released from their pit boxes. And I think I'll hide my timer and get into the watch-along part of the stream. Let me just quickly hide that, because obviously it is not the race. Obviously the running order on the left-hand side of your screen, and obviously practice 2 is an hour-long session. I'll sync up the timer at the 59-minute mark, as Valtteri Bottas, by the looks of it, is very much ready to go in his Alfa Romeo. Oh yeah, another thing I need to quickly, I guess, kind of apologise for, along with my stinking cold, is also the pictures that I will be displaying on the screen during the next hour of the Practice 2 session will sadly be from Bahrain, because I wasn't able to find enough, good enough pictures from the weekend so far of the cars on track. So, yeah, I'll have to have the pictures from Bahrain, unfortunately, on screen. But obviously for tomorrow, it'll be fine. And I'll be able to have plenty of pictures on screen of what's happened today. But, yeah, we are, I think, just about underway, or we are very close to getting underway in this session. And yeah, we are actually underway, because I can see the green light there flashing. And cars now on circuit. And yeah, session underway, about 10 seconds in, and I'll sync up the timer in about 45 seconds time. So there you go. And the first car on track looks to be a Williams to me, as we've got a lot of cars coming out onto the track. And a couple cars, more than a couple cars, I think 3 cars there. The 2 McLarens and an Alfa Romeo doing a practice start on the exit of the pit lane. And now a Haas joins them, I think, of Nico Hülkenberg. Good to see so many cars onto the circuit. And I don't think... Yeah, I'm going to have to sync up the timer at the 58-minute mark, because they've hidden the timer, so I can't actually see exactly how long is left. So I will get it on screen, guys, as soon as. Josiah asks, did you guys hear what Toto said about Lewis? No, enlighten us as to what he said, because I have no idea. I think maybe Sky showed something about it in their build-up, but obviously I have Sky muted when I'm live on stream. As Max Verstappen, the man who's won this race only once, obviously only 2 editions before this year of this Grand Prix. And there you go. So we've got 58 minutes to go until the conclusion of Practice 2. Yeah, should be a decent session. Josiah says he basically came out and said if within the next 2 years Mercedes can't give him a car to fight, he should leave and go to another team. Well, that's quite surprisingly honest. I've never seen, another team principal say that about a star driver, that, if they can't do or produce a car good enough for him, that that driver should leave. I mean, maybe. Who knows? I mean, he is out of contract at the end of this year. Maybe he'll, if he doesn't see a good enough route back to the top of Formula One, maybe he will call it quits at the end of the season. That is absolutely possible. I know that, Lewis and Toto have been saying, that Lewis is going to sign a new contract and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, those are just words. Until he actually signs, I'm not going to necessarily believe that he is going to be in Formula 1 next season, as there's a replay of Bottas locking up and going deep at the first chicane. And here comes Lewis Hamilton down the pit straight. DRS open. Let's see what he can do for his first time. We've got 4 times on the board now. And we've got Carlos Sainz quickest. And then I think Alonso in second for Aston Martin. Yep. And then you've got Hülkenberg in third. With, I think, Magnussen possibly in fourth. I'll have a look in a sec. No, it's actually Stroll in 4th place, and then Piastri 5th, and Norris in 6th place. I know it's been talked about a lot in the last few, maybe not last few weeks, but last few days. Lewis Hamilton's future. Will he, possibly retire? Will he leave for another team? I know it's been talked up a bit, and even I think Simon Lazenby said on a Sky F1 podcast, I think just after Bahrain, that he thinks Lewis could go to Ferrari. But I've said this before in the last few years on this channel. I don't see him ever racing for the Ferrari team. I just don't see it. As Max Verstappen gets very close to the exit, or to the wall on the exit of the final corner, and only goes 13th with what was clearly a warm-up lap. But I'll explain more again for people that may not have heard my opinion on it in a second. I just want to get the order correct first. So it is Sainz, Alonso, Hülkenberg, Stroll. And then you've got Ocon in 5th, with Albon in 6th place, and Zhou Guanyu up to P7 in the Alfa Romeo. Then Piastri, Norris, and Sargent complete the top 10. And then after that, someone's just improved. It is Charles Leclerc, who of course has a 10-place grid penalty this weekend, and he's gone up to 2nd position. As Max Verstappen is 5.5 tenths up on Sainz after the first 2 sectors, so it looks as though Max is going to go P1 by a mile. As Gasly, the Alpine up to 4th. I expect Gasly to be pretty fast this weekend, just like his teammate Ocon. And here comes Max Verstappen to the line, and he should go quickest, and he does. Loses quite a bit of time in that final sector, but he does go quickest, but it's not as quick as he went in practice 1, of course. Still about 1.2 seconds off the pace that he did in practice 1. As Lance Stroll looks as though he's going to be going probably up to 2nd place with this lap. And yep, he does. So Stroll up to P2. And Fernando Alonso comes to the line and goes quickest. Very good lap there for Fernando. And yeah, 0.2 of a second quicker than Max. So it's Alonso, Verstappen, Stroll, Sainz, Leclerc, Gasly. And then Lewis Hamilton is now in 7th, with Hülkenberg in 8th. And here's a replay of Alonso making a bit of a mistake at the exit of turn 22, which is the very fast left-hander that is just after the middle sector time beam. And Alonso probably could have gone quite a bit faster with that lap. As Hülkenberg, I've just seen, has improved up to P7. Ocon has now improved a couple positions up to 7th. And then you got Hülkenberg 8th, Hamilton 9th, Zhou in 10th. Norris now in P10. As Alex Albon comes to the line and goes up to 8th place. Watch out for Albon this weekend. He's going to be a dark horse. There is no doubt about that. That Williams car, very quick, obviously down the straights. The Williams, one of the best in that area. So we've got Hamilton now in 10th, and then Norris 11th. Tsunoda in P12. And then Zhou 13th. Russell in the second Mercedes is 14th. With De Vries 15th. Sargent 16th. And then Magnussen Piastri, Bottas, and Perez. Perez, though, is now finally on a proper flying lap. He did a warm-up lap also. Did Checo on the medium compound tyre. Got a great turn 22, but he's only a tenth down on Alonso after the first two sectors. Alonso, by the way, has come into the pit lane as Piastri goes up to 11th. Charles Leclerc is up to 3rd as F1 just setting their first bankers of the session. And Perez gets a good slipstream for the Ferrari ahead and goes quickest. Sergio Perez is top of the timesheets. There you go. Pierre Gasly is up to 5th. Just seen that. And then who else have we got? Nick De Vries is up to 13th. And I think those are almost all of the changes. Magnussen is up to 17th. And Sargent now up to P12 as Max Verstappen is about to complete another run. 2 purple sectors. Make that, I was going to say make that 3, but no, he did not do a purple final sector. But he does go quickest on a 1:30.0. So it is a Red Bull 1-2. Aston Martin are in 3rd with Ferrari 4th and then Alpine in 5th. That is your current top 5. But anyway, whilst we've got the first lap times on the board now, I could finally talk about this whole Lewis Hamilton situation. Yeah. I don't think, and by the way, thank you Goat Farmer for that comment. Yeah, I don't think Lewis Hamilton is ever going to go to Ferrari, and I still think this. There's 2 reasons why I think this, as we had a yellow flag there briefly in Sector 3, probably someone going off briefly at turn 22. But as Hulkenberg, I think, just improves his lap time there, but stays in 10th. Yeah, the 2 reasons why I think he'll never go to Ferrari, at least, in the short term, is for 2 reasons. One, Ferrari is still incompetent, and even if he moves to Ferrari, who may have a faster car for the next couple of years, that doesn't mean Ferrari are going to give him enough of a car to win the World Championship. I mean, look at last season. Ferrari were comfortably, a lot of the time, faster than Mercedes, yet Mercedes nearly beat them in the Constructors' Championship to 2nd. So, yeah, I don't think moving to Ferrari really improves his chances, unless, once Fred Vasseur properly gets this team going, if he can, in a much better direction and can improve this team quite a bit. If that doesn't happen, then I don't see how, again, his chances of success are increased. I don't think they are really at all. And secondly, Mercedes, they've been behind him and supporting him for such a long time. Back when he was in karting, because obviously McLaren back then was supported quite a bit by Mercedes-Benz. Obviously, when he was with McLaren, Mercedes, still had a big influence, I would say, in the McLaren team when he first joined Formula One and McLaren. And then, obviously, the last 10 years he's been with the Mercedes Works team, and look at all the success he's had. And I just think with the people around him that he clearly does trust to do what's best for him, I just don't think he's ever going to leave that for another team. I just don't see it at all. I think if he does move to Ferrari, then in my view, it's purely for financial reasons and maybe just his own dreams, I guess, of racing for the Ferrari team. Because I don't see how, if he actually wants to be an 8-time, 9-time world champion in the future, I don't see how moving to Ferrari right now would aid that. I just don't see it at all. The only team right now that he could move to that could, be a substantially better team for him to race for that could give him the chance to win a championship would be Red Bull. And obviously he's not going to race for Red Bull. That's never going to happen. So, yeah. As Carlos Sainz there, that just a replay of what the yellow flag was. It was him going off at turn 22 as Pierre Gasly goes up to second. Let me know, guys, there in the chat with Hamilton. Yeah, do you, if you think he let me try and phrase this correctly. If you think he will leave the Mercedes team, please list your reasons as to why, and who do you think he would join, and why do you think he would join that particular team? Because I'd be very curious to hear your arguments, and just reasons in general. As Yuki Tsunoda, currently in 18th, comes to the line, improves up only to 15th. Gasly is up to 4th now. Esteban Ocon is up to 5th. Good so far for Alpine. Albon is 6th, and then you've got Leclerc, Stroll, Hamilton, and Sainz then completing the top 10. And then in P11, it is George Russell, just ahead of Nico Hülkenberg. And then you've got De Vries in 13th. And they've just gone to an ad break, actually. Have Sky F1, which is annoying. By the way, if you haven't hit the like button yet, make sure to do so. Let's try. And in the next, say, 15-20 minutes, let's try and get up to, say, 20 likes for the stream. I think we're currently on like 13 or 14. So yeah, it's De Vries in 13th, and then Zhou in 14th, Tsunoda 15th, and Sargent 16th, Piastri 17th, Norris 18th, Magnussen 19th, and Bottas in 20th. The soft tyre runs should be coming up very, very soon. Yeah, we should get to those momentarily. Let's see what you guys have to say in the chat in regards to Lewis Hamilton. Do you think he will leave Mercedes? Again, if you think he will, for what reasons? And what team, in your opinion, then, does he join? And again, what are your reasons for him joining that particular team? Maybe you could argue Aston Martin is an option, but we have to remember, obviously, Lawrence Stroll owns the team. And his son Lance, whether you love him, like him, or hate him, is always going to have a seat at that team. So there's always only one seat available at Aston Martin. And currently, it is occupied by, obviously, Fernando Alonso. So I don't see Aston Martin as an option, really. Unless Alonso, I don't know, magically wins the championship for the next couple of years and then decides to retire. Lab Gorilla, good to see you. Hopefully you're feeling a bit better than you said you were yesterday. Says Lewis should go to Ferrari, can't finish his career without realising the dream. I mean, if that is what the term for him is for retiring, I guess, that he has to get that 8th World Championship before he retires, then yeah, he might be around in Formula 1 for quite a bit longer, because Mercedes, I don't see being world champions really until 2025 or even the new set of regs in 2026 at the earliest. So yeah, he could be around for a while. could Lewis. Ronan Brady, where would he go though? Audi in 2026? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. It depends though on what. I mean, let's say Lewis signs a contract to stay with Mercedes until the end of 2025. If during 2025 Audi put a pitch to him and, you know, they show Lewis obviously what they're up to, how they're progressing with the 2026 power unit, if they're really progressing well and they look as though they're going to be out of the blocks and very, very quick in 2026, then maybe he might decide to race for them. Obviously would be a big scalp for Audi, you know, taking Lewis away from Mercedes and a great name to head up their project. But Audi have already talked about, you know, they want to have a German driver in their car. So, you know, maybe they'll have 2 German drivers, 1 German driver, we'll see. As Fernando Alonso now on track on a set of soft compound tyres, and he's about 0.4 of a second up on Verstappen. That cuts the exit of turn 22. And yeah, this lap time doesn't really mean anything. I mean, he's still pushing on. But yeah, he's not going to have improved as much on this lap as he could have done. I've got to say, though, the Aston Martin in that final corner looked absolutely on rails. And he does go up to second, does Alonso, only slightly slower than Verstappen. But again, that wasn't a clean lap. He could go probably a bit quicker than that. You know, 2 or 3 tenths of a second, I reckon. So yeah, not great there for Fernando. I mean, I got to say, up until that mistake at turn 22, which of course turn 22 is the first corner of the final sector, the pace of the Aston Martin was really good after the first 2 sectors. So yeah, that's a positive pace from what I've seen so far from them. As Alonso kind of holding up the Mercedes there, but I think the Mercedes there of Russell is yeah, he's on an outlap. As here comes Max Verstappen on a set of soft tyres. His quickest time so far, 1:29.9. Surely he'll go, 5-6 tenths of a second faster with this lap. As an Alpine just ahead of him is entering the fray, as well as Valtteri Bottas improves up to 19th place. Ronan Brady asked, do you think James Vowles was a good appointment for Williams? I thought it was a great one for them, as he could easily succeed Toto in the future. From what I've seen so far, yeah, he seems like a good fit. And yeah, I with how experienced he is, and obviously a serial title winner with the Mercedes team, that is a great scalp for Williams. And if he can, lead that team, as well as, say, Toto Wolff leads Mercedes, and obviously, Christian Horner leads Red Bull, then Williams, yeah, they will be in a very good place for the future. And I'm definitely a lot more optimistic about Williams after the first race, because they seem as though they've got a good amount of pace this season. As Sergio Perez has gone quickest, only slightly quicker though than Max, and Max about to do his quick run on the soft. So yeah, Max is going to go quite a bit quicker than Checo did. As Sainz is on his soft tyre run now. And the first sector is 4 tenths down. That's quite bad, I've got to say. Leclerc in the first sector has, I'm guessing, not... Yeah, he must be doing a warm-up lap because he's 5 seconds off the pace. Is Leclerc. What is Sainz doing for the middle sector, though? As he comes up to turn 22, and He's about 7/10 of a second off the pace, but obviously this is not a very good lap right now for him. And not very good pace from Ferrari. I expected quite a bit more than this, as Russell improves up to 6th. For Mercedes, yellow flag in sector 2. As Carlos Sainz comes to the line, and he improves his lap time, but he stays in P11. That was a pretty poor lap time from Carlos. You better hope Ferrari are holding back a lot with their power unit, because I'm hoping that's not the best he can do. Vince just says, I think Lewis is holding out for the spokesman part of his contract the Mercedes doesn't want. Maybe. I mean, again, we don't know the details with what's going on with the contract stuff, but I mean, I'm not saying that he's absolutely, definitely, going to retire at the end of the season. I mean, my prediction coming into 2023 is that Mercedes were going to have a quick enough car to win the championship, and Lewis would win the championship and then retire as, the undisputed GOAT of motorsport, never mind Formula One. But obviously Mercedes have not produced even a podium contending car right now. So what Hamilton does for the future, obviously, my opinion on that is a bit different now. But put it this way, because Lewis, normally when he signs a new contract, he'll sign it like June, July, or even normally around like the Austrian or British Grand Prix. If he, after the British Grand Prix and even into the summer break, has still not signed a new contract, then I think there's definitely a decent chance Lewis might call it quits at the end of this season. As Lance Stroll had a bit of a twitchy moment on the entry to turn 1, but looked okay for the rest of the first chicane. Stroll now flying through the first sector. As Leclerc improves his lap time. Only to 4th, though. Is still nearly 6/10 of a second slower than Perez. Yeah. Not great. Not great at all from Ferrari. I really hope they are sandbagging a bit, because, yeah, their pace doesn't look great. Especially when Nico Hülkenberg goes quicker than Charles Leclerc, as he just has. Hülkenberg up to 4th. Obviously was very quick in Bahrain. And we'll be looking to keep that up here. Magnussen has gone 10th. Tsunoda has gone up to P12. AlphaTauri looking pretty slow here, as expected. Gasly is up to 5th. As Lance Stroll comes through the final corner. I've not really kept an eye on his sector time, so I have no idea how good this lap is. To the line he comes and goes 7th, which is not great, if I'm being honest. He's, 6/10 of a second slower than Alonso? Yeah, not great lap time there. As Alex Albon coming to the line now in a Williams, and he stays, surprisingly, in 10th place. Doesn't actually improve on what he did on the medium compound. Nick De Vries comes to the line, goes up to 13th. Let me just update that Zhou is in 12th. And then, yeah, De Vries 13th. Esteban Ocon goes up to 7th. We've got Sargent up to 14th. And then Tsunoda 15th, Hamilton 16th, and then Sainz, Piastri, Norris, Bottas. And here is Max Verstappen on a flying lap. And what a first sector. Nearly 3/10 of a second up on Perez after the first sector alone. Stunning pace. As here comes Max through turn 16 and 17. a brilliant uh, pair of corners there, if I can speak. Piastri up to 15th. I've just seen on the soft tyre. That's really not good for McLaren. Not a purple middle sector for Max, but he's still about 3.5 tenths up on Perez. Lando Norris goes up to 9th. That's a impressive time. And Max Verstappen exits the final corner now, comes to the line, surely goes quickest, but by how much? By 0.3 of a second. So he's done a 1:29.6 and is slightly quicker than his best time he did in practice 1. But yeah, Red Bull look incredibly quick here so far this weekend. Charles Leclerc's done 2 personal best sectors as he comes into the final corner now of the final sector, but he's not on the pace of Red Bull. Sainz is on a better lap now, which is good. As Leclerc to the line he comes and stays in 6th place. That is quite poor of a lap again from Ferrari. Here's Sainz, and he's 0.6 of a second down on Max after the first 2 sectors. I mean, my assumption is that Ferrari have definitely got things turned down a bit more than Red Bull have. I mean, we saw that in Bahrain, where Ferrari weren't very quick in practice, but then in qualifying were a lot quicker. As Sainz comes to the line and goes up to 8th place for Ferrari. But they were definitely a bit closer to Red Bull in practice too in Bahrain, with their engines, turned down a bit more, the Red Bull, than they are now. They were, if I remember correctly, it was like 3 or 4 tenths of a second. Or more like half a second, actually, I think. But now it's, 3/4 of a second. So yeah, not looking good if you are a Ferrari fan. Lance Stroll now coming through the final corner. And Alonso goes up to 2nd on a 1:29.8. Lance Stroll now goes 4th for Aston Martin. So Red Bull and Aston Martin, the 2 fastest teams here so far. Not necessarily what it's going to be like in qualifying tomorrow, but yeah, looks good for Aston Martin. Esteban Ocon goes 7th. George Russell is on a bit of a better lap. He's actually a lot quicker on this lap in the first 2 sectors than both Ferraris were. Which maybe points to why Ferrari have not got that much pace in this session, because they've got things turned down. As Russell to the line goes up to 4th place. That's a very good lap from Russell. Puts him in the fight there with Aston Martin. Or at least, the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. Lewis Hamilton has improved, but only up to 11th place. So, yeah, not great for Hamilton. He is on another lap, though. He's currently halfway through his current flying lap. And then you've got Norris 12th, Albon 13th, then Magnussen, Joe De Vries, Sargent, Piastri, Tsunoda, Bottas. Those are all the drivers below Hamilton in 11th. And yeah, Hamilton pretty slow on this lap yet again. And I don't think he's going to improve on this lap. There's quite a few drivers now coming into the pits. So I think we have probably seen the quickest times of practice today. As Hamilton to the line. And yeah, he goes like 0.2 of a second slower than he did before. So not good for him. He's half a second slower than his teammate. George Russell in 4th. And yeah, Mercedes looking just not as quick as maybe some Mercedes fans out there hoped. They have brought a couple upgrades to this Grand Prix. One of them is a new rear wing to try and cut some drag. And another one is, I think, to do with the floor fences. I think also to cut some drag. Obviously, the Mercedes car, in comparison to the Red Bull and Ferrari, still struggling with its straight line speed. As just a couple replays of drivers getting held up on their laps. As here is Lance Stroll, who is going for another flying lap. And so is Esteban Ocon, so quite a bit of fuel on board those cars. Let's see what Stroll has done for the middle sector. It's okay, but I don't think it's going to be an improved lap here from Stroll. Very good middle sector for Ocon. He's only 0.2 of a second down on Verstappen. And Alpine, yeah, they look pretty quick here, don't they? Pierre Gasly is actually up to 5th place now. And Ocon is on another very quick lap. As here comes Stroll. And yeah, Lance does not improve his lap. Goes about 1/4 of a second slower than he did before. Here comes Ocon, who goes up to 4th place and did not actually improve his final sector. So could have gone even quicker. So 4th and 6th for Alpine. That is very, very good. And yeah, that should be, surely, now the end of all of the flying runs, flying laps. Just trying to see if there's any other improvements. Yep, Tsunoda is up to 13th for AlphaTauri. Just update that. And I think that's all the positions now correct. Once F1 properly starts their race runs, which should be getting underway the next few minutes or so, I will make sure to put the lap times on screen for and what the gaps are between first and all the way down the field, like I did previously in Bahrain. So Sky now on an ad break. So I'll just quickly say again, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because we're doing plenty of content this weekend for this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Tomorrow I'll be live for the qualifying preview, Practice 3 Watchalong and qualifying Watchalong, with an F2 sprint race Watchalong in between Practice 3 and qualifying for F1. And I'll be live at 12 p.m. UK time tomorrow, all the way through till 6:30. And then on Sunday, I'm doing a watch-along for the F2 feature race, and then a race preview and race watch-along for the F1 race. And I'll be live from 1 p.m. UK time all the way through till nearly 8 p.m. that evening. So make sure to join me for all of that this weekend. And yeah, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell. And don't forget to smash the like button as well if you haven't already. Let's try and get the likes up if we can to, say, 30 likes by the end of this stream. Just trying to see some of the comments in the chat quick. Polish Eddie says, it would be great to see Hamilton and Max on the same team, so all the toxic Hamilton fans can finally be silenced and we can see who is better in equal machinery. Ronan Brady says, I think he'll take a year out of F1 Hamilton and come back in 2025 at Ferrari for money. I think he will take a year out in 2024 and join Ferrari at the end of Leclerc's contract. I really don't get how you think Hamilton is still better than Verstappen. I mean, currently, Max Verstappen is better than Hamilton. And I have been saying that for the last few months, really. But if you're comparing, the peak Lewis Hamilton to the peak Max Verstappen in their careers so far, and just comparing their careers and, the amazing things both drivers have done so far in their careers, yeah, I think Lewis Hamilton is still better than Max Verstappen. I mean, Verstappen could legitimately go down as the greatest driver of all time. I mean, with the Red Bull car he's got, Max is going to probably be on 45 plus wins in his F1 career by the end of this season, and he's turning 25 later this year, which is, terrifying to think about. That he'll already be that successful at such a young age. Because at 25, Hamilton had, 10 to 15 wins, I think, in his F1 career by that point. Obviously, Lewis entered Formula 1 a lot later than Max did. But, currently Max Verstappen is the best driver in Formula 1. That is clear to see. But we can't compare Max Verstappen to Lewis Hamilton in terms of the all-time... well, not all-time, but, comparing them in terms of who is the better driver for their entire careers so far. We just can't compare them at the minute, because Max still hasn't had enough, I'd say, years fighting at the front, or not fighting at the front, but fighting for championships. Because remember, he's only been fighting for championships in the last, obviously this season he'll be champion most likely. Last season he was champion, and 2021 he was champion. Before 2021, he would, be fighting at the front, occasionally win a race, but he would never be contending for the championship for reasons out of his control. So, and with Hamilton having raced in Formula 1 now, I think for 16 years? Or something like that. It's just very hard to compare those two. I think with Max, you need to wait probably another 3 to 4 years to seriously compare Max to Hamilton in terms of who is all-time the better driver. But right now, where would I place Max Verstappen in my all-time best F1 drivers of all time list? I would probably place him between 10 and 20 in my all-time list. I know, obviously, by the end of his career, he's going to end up being absolutely one of the top 10 best drivers ever, because he'll win definitely a few more championships. But yeah, from what he's done so far, we can't compare them in terms of their careers. But right now, yeah, Max Verstappen is the better driver. And also, another thing, which, yeah, Verstappen fans might not want to hear this, but it is true. We can't really, this season, let's say Verstappen and Red Bull do dominate this season as much as I think they will, and they win almost every race this season. Yeah, that's great. Obviously, statistically, that'll add very well to his resume, but in terms of him as a driver, it hardly separates him from the other great drivers currently in Formula 1 and from other great drivers in Formula 1 history if he does dominate this season, mostly because of the Red Bull car being so good. Because if you take Max out of this Red Bull car and put Lewis into it, or Leclerc, or Norris, or Alonso, they probably would dominate the season. Maybe not exactly as much as Max, but around about as much as Max, and win the championship as well. So I think this season won't really add anything to his how great of a driver he is all time compared to everybody else. And I think last season, even to a certain extent, doesn't add an absolutely massive amount to how great he is all time compared to the others, because last season, towards the end of the season, the Red Bull was definitely the quickest car. Obviously, he produced many very good drives to get wins in certain races, not denying that. But also there were other races where Max won because of Ferrari's, engine issues, strategy decisions that cost the drivers heavily. So, yeah. I think if you're looking at like the all-time, say, top 20 best drivers in Formula 1, and where, say, Max Verstappen fits into all of that, it's hard to say right now because I don't think we've had enough clear examples to see with Max just how truly great compared to, you know, the other greats we've had he is, if that makes any sense. Alan Moore says, yeah, but you can say it about any driver in the past. What do you mean exactly by that? Yeah, let me know what you mean by that in say more detail, as I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying, and also I want to make sure I understand what you're responding to in terms of what I've said. But whilst I wait for more thoughts from you guys, we have got nearly 14 minutes to go in practice 2, so I am going to get lap times on the screen and display, you know, the obviously the best lap time of Max Verstappen, a 1:29.603, and then I'll display all of the gaps as well. So just give me a couple minutes, guys, and I'll get that displayed for you so you can see exactly how the field is faring. Pretty much everyone except, I think, Alex Albon has done their best time on the soft tyre. So definitely more to come from Albon, I think. But yeah, I think we've got a decent idea of what's going to happen in qualifying tomorrow at the very front. But yeah, let me just quickly try and get this done. And of course, if there's any on-track action like accidents, mistakes, or anything like that, I will update you guys as soon as possible. Right, and get the top 10 quickly and their gaps done. And it's an intro. Oh, I think not Discord. I think my OBS disconnected very briefly. Sorry if that's hampered you guys at all. But I'm back on now, I believe. But yeah, I thought they would be quick in the midfield, but I didn't think they'd be, and certainly Alpine, I did not think they would be as quick as they've been so far. Obviously, Ferrari having a bit of a struggle. I am curious, though, to see the sector times from practice 2 today, because that will definitely indicate whether Ferrari are, you know, whether they've got their power unit turned down a bit. But Lewis Hamilton, if you're wondering, who is in 11th place, is almost exactly 1 second off the pace. And then you've got Lando Norris just, just over a 10th behind him, with Tsunoda having done a decent lap for AlphaTauri in 13th. And then, yeah, Alex Albon in 14th did his best time on the medium. So I think Albon could be, I think looking so far, Albon is probably going to be into Q2 tomorrow. But I think Albon could be definitely a contender to get into the top 10 in qualifying if Williams are super quick and if Albon can pull off a really great lap like we know he can do. And let me just do the last few times here of Magnussen. Joe, Alfa Romeo, very slow, which is interesting. I would say. I don't really understand why Alfa Romeo are so slow, 16th and 20th. I don't get that. Pretty sure Bottas did his best time on the soft tyre, so yeah, Alfa Romeo just don't seem to be that quick at the minute. Maybe they've got a bit more to show us tomorrow. Let me see the last couple times. Logan Sargent in 18th. He'll be hoping to improve a bit tomorrow because I think Williams have got a decent package here. And obviously he had a pretty good weekend in Bahrain, and I'd love to see him doing well again. And the final lap time or gap, Bottas. And yeah, I think that's all correct now. And there you go. Let me just adjust it slightly. Yeah, so there you go. Max Verstappen, quickest, as you can see on your screen, on a 1:29.6. And then those are all the gaps all the way down to the bottom. A bit closer, the field here, than it was last season. I'm not sure what the gap was throughout the entire field in practice 2 last year at this track. But in qualifying, let me just see what it was. In qualifying, if you exclude Nicholas Latifi's time, because he was massively slow this time last year at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the gap from top to bottom was 2.3 seconds. And obviously at the minute it's 1.5 seconds. So, yeah. Looks decent so far in terms of competition. Antoinette Rake saying, Alan Moore, you are right. You can say about every driver. Again, what do you mean, though, exactly? Do you mean that when I said that, you know, if you put Alonso, Hamilton, Leclerc, Norris, drivers like that into the Red Bull currently, that they would still be basically the world champion and the clear dominant favourite for this season? Is that what you mean? But because, I mean, yeah, for some drivers, yeah, you can say that about them, but not every driver, let's be honest. You can't, if you put Zhou Guanyu or Logan Sargent into the Red Bull, they're not going to win the championship. Because they're just not anywhere near the same level of driver. And, you know, you've still got a pretty good driver in Sergio Perez there who would beat drivers like those. So, yeah, I'm only comparing Max to the other, say, top drivers in Formula 1. And at the end of the day, what I look out for in terms of what separates a driver from the others is how they do when they are either in an equal car, you know, the same car, or a car that is on similar pace. Then you can get a good idea for what makes Max better than Leclerc or Norris. Obviously, Max and Lando have never been in similar cars, really, in terms of pace. But you see what I mean? That's what I look at for who is better. Sorry, who is better. I don't just look at, well, you know, Max won 17 races last season, and at the next highest win total, I think, was Leclerc with 3. So obviously Max is like 10 million miles better than everyone else, because that's not the case. It is a lot closer at the very top of Formula 1, as Leclerc has a bit of a moment there in turn 5 or 6, I think that was. Not great for Leclerc. And he certainly will hope that he can have a good qualifying, because, of course, he has to take a 10th-place grid penalty. And here's a replay. And, yeah, goes in, and the rear end stepped out on him and nearly threw him into the wall. Classic Looney says, F1 is not a sport. In tennis, you win because of how good you are, and it's all on you. But in F1, it's 95% car and 5% driver. Maybe Lewis may or may not finish 20 seconds behind Max in the same car. I don't think the difference is that big. I don't think it is 95% the car. I know, obviously, Murray Walker used to say this a lot back when he was commentating. I think he said it quite a bit, definitely in the 90s, where he would go on about, it's 50% the car and 50% the driver. I think back then it definitely was like that. I think the drivers back then had a lot more input into how good the pace was overall. But I think with these cars today, with how good they are, I think it's probably about 75% of the results that a driver gets is down to the car. I mean, occasionally, yeah, you'll get a really stunning performance from certain drivers, but yeah, 75% of the result a driver gets is down to the car, let's be honest. It's not like these cars are like the cars in the 90s where they were real, incredibly hard cars to drive and wrestle around a track. A lot of them are quite a bit easier to drive and just a lot better handling wise, engine wise than it was, say, 25, 30 years ago. I mean, if there's one thing in Formula One I would change, it's making the cars, or putting the cars into a state that would make it a lot more, the drivers could have a lot more input into the performance of the car and make it a bit more IndyCar-ish, but I wouldn't obviously make it just like IndyCar where you've got equal cars basically or anything like that. But yeah, these cars do seem still, and I know obviously they are very hard to drive. These are the best racing drivers in the world, but they do seem a lot easier to drive than cars even 10 years ago, to be honest. And it doesn't help our, I say, opinions of truly who is the best and worst drivers in Formula One. As Nico Hulkenberg continuing on, another another lap on his longer run on the medium compound tyres. Yeah, for the race, I expect, like I said, the medium tyres to be the tyres that are used the most. And it should be a medium to hard compound tyre or a hard to medium compound tyre strategy. It'll be a one-stop race. Not very interesting, really, on the strategic side of things. But the next Grand Prix in 2 weeks, the Australian Grand Prix, should be a lot more interesting when it comes to tyres and strategy, because tyre wear is a bit worse around Melbourne because of a lot of the long, fast corners and the temperature. If it is actually sunny for an Australian Grand Prix weekend, which it is most of the time, the temperatures are definitely higher, which obviously hurts the tyres a bit more. And the same compounds that are here for this weekend's race are going to be at the Australian Grand Prix as well, the C4, C3 and C2. So, yeah, we should see some more interesting stuff with the tyres in 2 weeks. But this weekend doesn't really matter too much. Also, Jazza, the cars have a lot more downforce and are much wider than 10 years ago. Yeah, well, I think that's the issue, is that these cars, they have just, and I know obviously they look wonderfully exciting on the track, especially if you actually go to a Formula One Grand Prix weekend. But the drivers aren't wrestling with these cars as much as they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, etc., etc. And that's actually one thing I liked about the 2014 regulations. Despite, the V6 hybrid being a lot quieter than the V8s and it not being that new era maybe as exciting as it could have been, I really liked initially how hard the cars were to drive because of the increased amount of torque from the power units, and also because of just how much downforce they cut away from the cars compared to 2013, and it made the cars properly hard to drive. And I really enjoyed, watching, for example, wet qualifying or races from that era, because you had to wrestle those cars a lot more than these cars, and obviously the cars from like 2017, 2018 as well. So yeah, if I was to obviously be running F1, never going to happen. I would try and opt for regulations that just took, quite a bit of the downforce away from these cars, so we could see the drivers really wrestle and have to battle with these cars, because I think it'd be a lot more interesting, and it would be also better for us to know truly who is the best and worst, again, drivers in Formula 1. But, guys, the session is now over. And, yeah, that is all done with practice 2. Not everyone has met the checkered flag, but obviously everyone is completing their long runs. So I think I can just get into now the final finishing order of practice 2. Max Verstappen ends up quickest from Fernando Alonso in second, 0.2 of a second away from Max. Perez third, Ocon fourth, Russell fifth, Gasly sixth, Alpine looking very good. And then you got Stroll in seventh, Hülkenberg eighth, Leclerc ninth, Sainz in 10th, Hamilton 11th, Norris 12th, Tsunoda 13th, Albon 14th, Magnussen 15th, and then Zhou de Vries, Sargent, Piastri, and Bottas completing the rest of the field. Guys, thank you so much for coming along for this practice 2 watch along. And again, don't forget about the content coming up, which is, as you can see on your screen, tomorrow I'll be live from 12 p.m. till 6:30 p.m. UK time for the qualifying preview. Firstly, then the practice 3 watch along. Then we'll be doing a watch along for the F2 sprint race, and then building up to and watching along the F1 qualifying session. And then on Sunday, I'll be live from 1 p.m. UK time all the way through to at least 7:45 at night for the F2 feature race watch along, and then a race preview and race watch along for the F1 Grand Prix, of course. Make sure to join me for that on Sunday. And of course, on Monday night, I'll be doing a full-on review of the events from the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So make sure to join me for all of that content. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for it. All coming up and coming your way. Don't forget to smash the like button before you go if you haven't already. And make sure as well to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. And don't forget to join the Discord server, link below in the description, if you want to keep up to date with the content on this channel. And also, if you want to be part of our growing community here in our little corner, I would say, of the F1 community. But guys, again, thanks for coming along today. And until midday tomorrow, it has been me, ChazHD. Goodbye.